Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay? All right, thank you so much for making the time. Hopefully, I will keep this engaging and not put you to sleep after lunch. We'll get started about a minute or so earlier and then go from there. I think several of you came in here early, so that's a good thing because there's an entire line waiting outside. So thank you so much, first of all. And also, thanks to Databricks for providing us the opportunity for really talking to you about Power BI and Databricks and our partnership. It's a great partnership that we have, and we'll talk a little bit about it. My name is Mahesh Prakriya. Along with me is Zhang. And we work in the Azure Data team at large. And in particular, I'm responsible for some of the partnerships associated with multiple ISVs, including with Databricks. I had a long tenure at Microsoft, having shipped multiple different products, including Power BI as a whole. So for a long time, we owned the data integration components of Power BI, and Bob still does. And so it's Bob's work that he'll demo at the end. So the structure of this talk, just so you guys know, is about really highly visual set of slides. Just so I know my audience, how many of you already used Power BI? A chunk of you? Awesome. OK, that's good. We'll still take a step back, talk a little bit about Power BI at large, because almost every feature we will talk about here is applicable in the context of Databricks. And towards the end, there's a demos and on Power BI using that with Databricks as a whole, and then go from there. So as you saw, Satya is pretty hot about Power BI this morning, and is referring to that as one of the key partnerships, so that's a really good thing. So in Power BI, we believe in driving a data culture at the end of the day. What does that really mean? It means that we democratize data and empower everyone at any decision, at any scale, to be successful. That's really what we believe in. And so we'll take a step back and talk a little bit about it, and then we'll show some of the feature set, and then we'll delve into some of the cool new things as well. And I'll talk a little bit about Fabric as well as it relates to lakes and others as well. How many of you already know about Fabric? Some? OK, that's good. We'll spend some more time there then, if that is the case. OK, so what does that mean? We've had about 7 years. It's not even a full 7 years of rapid growth of Power BI. This is literally the graph of MAU, monthly active users, on Power BI. And it's literally been exponential, and it's been awesome. At this point, we have over close to 375,000 organizations. And I'll emphasize, that's organizations, enterprises, using Power BI. And why is that? Why has it been popular? So if you step back for a second, there's a broad community, it's not just us that talks about it, there's a broad community that has formed around Power BI. So if you have any questions on Power BI, it doesn't matter where you are on the globe, there are millions of members and hundreds of organizations dedicated to helping you succeed with Power BI. That includes with any of the data sources of 200 data sources that we support in Power BI, including Databricks as a whole. So secondly, one of the key things that we do is monthly we release Power BI Desktop. If you're already using Power BI, you know this. Every month we ship Power BI Desktop, and every week we're adding new features to Power BI service. This rapid innovation across what we have done is really what enabled us to get the momentum that we have. That includes folks like, of course, Gartner. For the last 6+ years, Gartner has been a strong proponent of looking at our innovation, looking at the momentum, and saying it is the absolute leader. Power BI is the absolute leader in the industry for BI platforms as a whole. It's not just 1 year, it's not just 2 years, it's across 6 years on that. So it's not just Gartner, it's also Forrester. And I love this code. It's hard not to consider Power BI as your top choice. And that's really something that is earned as a result of your feedback, because these monthly release cycles are based completely on your feedback. Most of you probably already know ideas.powerbi.com, where you go to vote on features, and we really pay attention to it to make sure those monthly releases are driven by the features that you're voting on. So that's really what we do across the board. So as much as we're happy that some of the analysts are voting us as the best, the key measure at the end of the day, the proof of the pudding, is in the eating. So today, we have vast majority of Fortune 500 using Power BI and succeeding with Power BI on a daily basis, and we're thankful for that as a whole. So that's something that I want to thank each and every one of you that is already using Power BI, and if you are not using Power BI, definitely track that. So why are the world's leading organizations standardizing on Power BI? If you step back for a second, there are 3 key reasons why. It is far and away the best BI tool in the industry, as you saw by some of the measures, but not all the measures. I've given you some sample data sets on that. In addition to that, it has the broadest AI capabilities of any BI tool in the industry today. So in fact, after I saw some of the keynotes this morning, I updated my presentation to include some more videos on the AI features as well, because some of the things you see are already shipping in Power BI for a long time. So we'll see some of those and then go from there. The second aspect is that it is deeply trusted and is fully governed in enterprises. We won't cover too much of that. We just won't have enough time for that today, but it's an entire domain in of itself, and it's something that we're thankful for as well. And finally, last but not least, it really does provide the best economics in the industry from a price point perspective as a whole. So with that, let's get to features. So that's about 5 minutes, and we'll get to features and talk a little bit about what we have, because I want to leave Bob at least 10 to 12 minutes at the end to show some of the other demos as well on that. So with our roadmap, we really have 3 categories, and I won't be able to cover all 3. When we talk about empowering every individual, team, and organization, we spent a lot of time in empowering teams and empowering organizations, especially teams in the context of Office integration, deep integration with Teams, deep integration with Excel, deep integration with every PowerPoint. For example, you can have a live dashboard within PowerPoint that really, as you bring up PowerPoint, you don't even have to worry about refreshing that dashboard, and it has the latest, greatest data. These are examples of multiple different ways we empower teams. I won't get a chance to talk about it. I will mostly spend time on the empowering individual. And then also, we empower organizations across the board from an admin, governance, security perspective. That's an entire talk in the domain in of itself that we won't be able to get to. So let's spend time on what does it mean to empower every individual in an enterprise, and every individual period across the board. The 3 major categories that we have. I'll start with augmented analytics, in other words, analytics plus AI capabilities that we're introducing. And then we'll talk a little bit about, I think most of you, if you use Power BI, you already know the PowerPoint for data story. It's visual. And then also, I won't be able to cover Insights on the Move, which is our mobile story, and Power BI embedded story as a whole, but we'll talk about the first 2. So let's talk about the first one. Let's talk about Copilot. So Copilot in Power BI was just introduced, as most of you know, just a few weeks ago. It's in preview right now, and let's see what it does.
Introducing the next generation of AI in Microsoft Power BI. Copilot in Power BI empowers your people to unlock the full potential of your data and move from data to insights faster. Now, with Copilot in Power BI, you can use natural language to bring your data to life. Simply describe the visuals and insights you're looking for, and next generation AI will create your report and help you refine it. You can then dig into this data further by asking a question, and Copilot will find the best answer. Not only does Copilot help you visualize your data, but it taps into Power BI's advanced analysis capabilities to help you find key influencers and outliers and create forecasts. Copilot can summarize your data into easy-to-understand text narratives that help others quickly get important and relevant insights. And for analysts who are creating calculations and modeling data, you can simply describe what you want, and the code is automatically generated. With Copilot in Power BI, turning data into impact has never been easier.
OK, so that is a whirlwind of features in there. So we're going to spend about a few minutes pairing that and then going through each thing that you saw in there. As how does a Copilot help you? So let's step into it. The first thing that it does, it allows you to do data exploration and report authoring in a natural language fashion. As you can see, that one is done by marketing, The rest of the demos are product team demos, so they'll be a little bit more geeky. They'll get geekier and geekier as we go into the rest of the presentation, so hang in there. So the idea there is that you're easily able to go tell Copilot that you want charts, graphs against certain piece of data, and you're able to get an entire report generated without the authoring experience end-to-end is actually super simplified. Super simplified. This is shipping today. In preview state, this is shipping today. This is what you're finding on that. And it also lets you actually adjust the visuals. You can actually tweak and adjust the visuals. If you want to use a different visual, you can do that. And of course, you can actually go ahead and state certain data sets that you want to use and slice and dice the data. But really, I think the best way to experience that is with a demo. So we'll go into Patrick's
Let's take a look at how Copilot in Power BI is empowering everyone to quickly find and share insights. For example, say I'm an HR analyst who is constantly handling requests from my management to do analysis and provide answers. It can take hours and even days to respond with new reports. Now, with Copilot in Power BI, I can simply describe the report I want to build and get insights in seconds. Maybe we need to break down some of our employee data to understand demographics and hiring trends. I just describe what I need, and Copilot will automatically analyze my data and create a new report based on my needs. Immediately, I have a beautiful Power BI report that is fully interactive, and I can start slicing and dicing my data to explore deeper. Copilot added the charts and slicers I asked for, but also conveniently gives me options to adjust the output to get just what I'm looking for. For example, let's switch to ask for metrics and trends in a slightly different layout. Automatically, Copilot updates the report. Let's go ahead and keep this report page. But it goes much further. I can also ask analysis questions such as why is our attrition rate going up? Copilot responds by adding a new page to my report and uses Power BI's built-in advanced analysis capabilities for finding key influencers for variables in my data. In addition to giving me a summary of insight about different employee types having different attrition rates, I can easily explore Power BI's key influencer visual to see what's driving the biggest impact to our attrition rate. I can even automatically see the most significant segments in my data just by clicking. Now let's go back to the first page and finish up our new report. I'm going to ask Copilot to make it look like our existing exec dashboard, and instantly it's applied the same formatting and style and adjusted the layout to match. Best of all, I can still interact directly with the Power BI report that the Copilot has created for me. So for example, if I wanted to manually change this bar chart to a tree map on my own, it's easy to do so with just a few clicks. Let's add employee functional area, and now I can filter by that new field. Finally, to make the report even easier for my team to understand, I'm going to ask Copilot to add a rich text description of my data right inside the report. This narrative summary is fully dynamic, and not only does Copilot highlight interesting insights from my data, but it provides citations from where in the report the data was taken. This summary will update every time the data is refreshed or people filter the report with new insights based on the data. And just like that, in seconds, I've created a report that would have taken hours or days to do manually. Copilot, built on top of Azure OpenAI, is truly revolutionizing how we empower everyone to find and share insights.
Okay, that's the first step. And I don't know how many of you have seen this already, but that's literally report authoring made simple. You speak to it in natural language, and it generates a report for you, and it's shipping in preview today. Okay, that's the first one. The second thing, how many of you have written a DAX expression already? Or several of you, okay. So you know the pain involved associated with it. So the idea behind the Copilot is really how do we make DAX expressions simpler in multiple ways. And I think in this case, you see the example here, give me all the customers. Let's start with B in Germany, made up example. But nevertheless, the idea is to actually have DAX code be generated by Copilot. So Copilots, especially at Microsoft, are really good at large bodies of code and being able to help you with the code generation and code authoring. And then let's see what that experience looks like to simplify DAX for you.
Let's take a look at how Power BI is integrating Azure OpenAI to empower everyone to quickly find and share insights. First, let's look at how we're adding Copilot capabilities for authoring calculations in Power BI's expression language, DAX. Let's say I want to create a calculation for profit margin in my model. Now, just by adding a comment, the new DAX Copilot understands both my model schema and common business definitions to correctly create the calculation. Once calculations are created, users can then quickly and easily use them inside their Power BI reports. The Copilot works for both basic measures like profit margin, but also complex ones like rolling averages or adding filters based on records in my database. And because of the amazing generative capabilities of Azure OpenAI, I can even do things like authoring comments in German, and the Copilot does not miss a beat generating DAX calculations based on my requests. Generating calculations in the context of a company-specific business model is a huge productivity boost for analysts, and will help more users ramp up on using the incredibly powerful DAX language.
Cool. So think of writing DAX expressions the old way versus the Copilot way. What do you guys think? Yeah? Cool? Okay, so let's look at one more example, and then we'll get to a lot more individual features on what does it mean. Data summarization with the Copilot help is one of the key areas where you're looking at large bodies of data, charts, graphs, and you would love for it to help you in summarizing some of the key trends and KPIs for you. And in that context, what does Copilot look like, and where would it help you is the next demo I want to show you guys.
Next, let's take a look at how...
Oops, hang on. Sorry, go ahead.
Next, let's take a look at how we're helping users find and describe insights to create narratives about their data. Inside of Power BI reports, I can now add an Azure OpenAI-powered smart narrative that automatically summarizes and describes the data within the report. Even better, we're giving report authors the ability to adjust the prompts being sent to the AI model so users can control the style and the tone of the output. There are several default prompts to select from, such as a summary, listing facts, and even a fun prompt to help users understand the types of outputs they can generate. And with the ability to add my own custom prompting, I can fine-tune what types of insights and language I want used. Just to show how flexible this is, let's ask for the output again to use emojis when formatting the data, while also asking the model to talk about my customers as hotel guests. The model produces a great, well-formatted, and easy-to-understand narrative about the data that incorporates my requests. It comes complete with citations for where in the report insights and data was used. And finally, it works seamlessly with slicing and dicing in the report, so I can cross-highlight a field, such as the age group 51 to 60, to see insights about that specific selection. We're starting by adding this type of narrative generation to reports, but we're also excited to bring it to more experiences across Power BI, such as sharing data summaries in PowerPoints and emails.
Cool. So, okay, those are 3 examples, by no means the only examples of where Copilot is going to help you going forward. That's an example of generative AI in action today, shipping in preview. I strongly recommend you try it out. Okay, now we're going to gear shift, and I'm going to have a bunch of slides. It's like a feature whirlwind, but a narrow slicing of feature whirlwind as it relates to AI features, since it's the Data and AI Summit that exists in Power BI, some of which you may already know about. I'll spend about 5 to 8 minutes on that before I get to Fabric, and then talk a little bit about Fabric as well, and then I'm going to hand off to Bob. So let's go from there. So all of you know this. The promise that we make from Power BI is that if you can use PowerPoint, you can use absolutely Power BI and generate reports. It should be as simple as any Office product, and in fact, with Copilots, it's going to be even simpler. That is the promise, and that's the promise that we're keeping as a whole. In this context, you see visual alignment and others, and here you change the visuals and layouts very easily with the clicks, as opposed to having to write any code whatsoever. The fundamental promise that we make is one of really no code. You are successful just by the virtue, just like using any Office application, just by the virtue of actually the visuals more than anything else on that. So the next area, and this is, you saw this in the keynote today as well, but this is shipping GA in the product today. The ability to generate smart narratives based on data that are generated by AI is something, this is a really textual English summary of what is happening in the data itself. And in this context, what does the sales trending look like? And that is something that is provided today out of the box in a GA form in the product. Similarly, the inverse of that, which is the ability to ask textual questions to data that you're working with and get answers back on the subset of the data that you're working with for analytics that you're doing as a whole. I think this is something that is already shipping, and each and every one of these features is already shipping as well. And here, what you see is the ability to influence the QA. For example, how do you define popular in a very particular way, such that you can actually have some prompt logic associated with it So the ability to go ahead and narrow that down and then go ahead to define that, all built right into the visuals, all built right into the UI, is how we achieve that. And you already saw key influencer analysis in at least a couple of the videos and demos. Here, you're looking at supply chain data and trying to look at what is happening with your back orders. Why are you having certain back orders for certain products? And the ability to use the visual, key influencer visual, to get at the data and then easily dive into it is really the key aspect of the analytics, more than anything else, which is you can have all kinds of data. You can sit there and write a lot of Python code. I can use the right visual and dig right into the data on that. In a similar way, root cause analysis, if you use that visual, the ability to go drill into the causal analysis for why, again, in this case, the backorder data that you have in the supply chain context is something that you're easily able to drill into and then do what-if analysis in an easy manner. By the way, each of these is just a mini talk in of itself. It's like a 20-minute talk in of itself, but I strongly recommend that you check these out as any of these that interest you. And one of my key favorite features is that this is Power Query, and I've shipped Power Query for many years, along with Bob and the rest of the team within Power BI. The ability to actually do sentiment analysis within Power BI via Power Query, what you're doing here is running a sentiment score on a data that you're ingesting through via Power Query and connector ecosystem, and then assigning a sentiment score in a quick way. So not only is it the ability to assign sentiment score, but rather key phrase extraction. For example, in this context, you have a scenario where you have a lot of customer verbal data that they've provided in textual data. What is the key feedback that you're getting through these volumes of data by using the right visual and analyzing the data is something that I think makes it super simple. So we have many, many customers succeeding with using the right visual, getting it right into it. Underneath it, they're all powered by AI to help enable that as well. In addition to that, again, we're back to Power Query because it's my favorite tool. So what you have here is the ability to extend using Azure ML. In this scenario, what you're doing is that you're looking at the image column and running image classification algorithm via Azure ML as you're ingesting the data and creating a new column as to what type of image that is. In this case, it's images of rooms in a hotel context, so you're basically saying, hey, this is a bathroom, or this is the bed, and on and on. So this is using image classification associated with that. Literally that easy. Click, 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 making that happen as you're ingesting the data, and then it's a step in the transformation. That's all it is. So this is how easy it is with that. So with that said, we're completely cognizant of the fact that, look, you may need to extend using Python or R, whatever your favorite language is, where certain functionality may not be enough for you. So we provide for the ability for you to bring your own Python code and extend anything that we don't already have in an easy manner for analytics purposes as well. So I think that is something that is provided in Power BI. And in addition to that, of course, there's some more slides I've cut, sorry, in the interest of time. Okay. Anyway, the summary of all of this, and then keep on going for another hour, is that we really have a pretty deep and strong adoption for AI. So just to give you an idea of the 375,000 sort of customers, enterprises that we have over 100 per our telemetry, right? We have 100 and some thousand customers already using the AI features, enterprises using the AI features within Power BI on that. So they're well-tested, well-grounded on that. And these 20 in particular are AI customer success stories that we publish on a regular basis that is available to anybody involved. OK, I'm about to gear shift a bit. So I gave you a whirlwind of features. I'm going to take a little sip and then switch to Fabric. So I'm going to need a little sip before doing that. OK, so let's talk a little bit about Fabric. So a month ago, we introduced the notion of Fabric. And Fabric is our complete analytical platform that we're providing from Microsoft. So I've been at Microsoft long enough to be able to say this. Actually, it's even before my time. Imagine the world when we had just, you bought a word processor that is separate from spreadsheet, that is separate from others. Even though you're all doing office work, you want to be able to interoperate amongst these tools. on the same substrate of data, but you're not able to do so. You had to go glue it all together associated with it. How do I embed an object from one to the other? How do I interoperate the data from one to the other? That world actually existed. So what Microsoft did is the ability to deeply, seamlessly integrate all of this together by bringing Office. So Fabric is equivalent to our Office suite. Microsoft Fabric is the suite for data going forward. It is a complete analytical platform. And I'm actually not going to have enough time to spend on the last two pillars. You saw some of the AI-powered aspects, and it has deep integration with Office as well. But I'm going to spend the first two because they're highly relevant to this audience. And I'm going to end with a demo on the Fabric context as to why it's relevant to the Databricks audience on that. So let's start about what is Fabric, first of all. So Fabric provides the best-of-breed tooling in each of the category. Data Factory, which is our data integration tooling, with the visuals of Power Query and data flows that you can use. Data engineering functionality, and of course, data science functionality. That's really where you're using Python quite a bit in enabling certain experiences to happen, including notebook experiences. Data warehousing, which many of you may know about, but you'll see why it's different in Fabric context compared to before in a minute. And then, of course, Synapse Real-Time Analytics. That is the engine that powers all of Microsoft product telemetry data. When you're talking about real-time telemetry, Microsoft has a large surface area of products, and each element of that product telemetry streams in real time. So any of the data points that I mentioned this morning, it's bigger than that. So it's like any product that you touch in Microsoft, it writes the telemetry to it. So that engine is what we're providing in Synapse Real-Time Analytics to do that. You know Power BI already. And Data Activator is a new tooling that we're providing to have you take action on data. A classic example is if the data, let's say if your sales is below forecast, I want to be able to go send an email about it or send a Teams message about it or take some action associated with it. Or if the particular, let's say, bug count goes about a certain thing, I want to be able to go log really a bug associated with it in Jira. So the ability to do that kind of functionality, which is act on data, is what Data Activator is about. Each of these verticals is an hour talk in of itself, and I strongly recommend you check out some of the build content associated with it. But here, I'm going to focus a little bit more on the things that are relevant to the Databricks audience as well. And the final thing that I want to cover here is the fact that it's not just glued on set of products, right? What you have here is a deep substrate of single security models, single unified workspace, a single compute functionality with OneLake as a whole that is brought together to make that happen. So with that context, let me tell you a little bit more about what OneLake is. OneLake, going forward, is going to be the substrate or the storage for any of these engines across the board to all read and write to it associated with that. And again, it's in Delta Parquet format, so we'll talk a little bit about it in the next slide. But the idea behind that is a single SaaS solution for your organization as a whole. You don't have to provision something. You don't get one lake from this vendor and another lake from this vendor and having to integrate that. You just have a single lake with a single copy of data that allows you to work with it in any of the workloads that you have. Well, what does that mean? On top of OneLake, we separated, of course, compute from storage as a whole. We provide a serverless compute engine that any of these can use. In the context of course, Data Factory and data engineering, you'd use a Spark engine, and this engine is updated to deeply understand, deeply be able to query natively the Delta Parquet format that's associated with OneLake. So we're completely about storing the data in Delta Parquet format and open formats as a whole, and then it's able to query that. And similarly, KQL works with that data as well. And of course, Power BI with the analysis service engine is updated directly to work against the Delta Parquet format in OneLake as well. So I'm not going to read through the bullets because I see the timer clicking down, but I'm going to go a few minutes over. It's fine. And then I want to leave Bob enough time as well. So with that said, the key point here is that what you work with as data in Databricks context is completely relevant and applicable, and it works just directly associated with it. So with that, I want to show you, actually, I want to click through to a demo that talks about a new mode that we're introducing in the context of Power BI. Most of you who use Power BI know that there are two key modes, which is direct query mode, where you issue a query to the back end, and then, of course, import mode, and the direct query mode has its own latency and performance issues. And then import mode, which is really about importing the data once into Power BI and working with it, much better performance, but there are all kinds of cache coherency issues and things of that nature, as you would imagine once you make a copy of the data within Power BI. We are introducing a new mode going forward, and it's already all in public preview, by the way, so you can go experience it. It's called Direct Lake mode. Direct Lake mode is the analysis service engine in Power BI directly updated to understand delta parquet in a manner such that it provides the best possible performance in the industry to slice and dice data. Okay, what does that mean? So let's take a look at the demo, and then.
Here we have a lakehouse containing anonymized finance data. These tables are stored in the Delta Lake format and are fully compatible with Parquet-based interfaces. Any tool or process that speaks Parquet can read these files. The data for the revenue table is almost a terabyte in its raw form, but here it's been compressed across 5 Parquet files. The tables we see in the background in Power BI Desktop match the table names in the Lakehouse. They are nothing more than pointers to the Parquet files and haven't loaded any real data as yet. Power BI can work directly with data in the data lake at blazing fast speeds without any prior loading. This is because Power BI has natively adopted the same Delta Parquet format used by the Lakehouse and the warehouse. I'm now going to create a Power BI report directly from the data lake. Business users can create beautiful reports in seconds with snappy instant response times. And I'm going to count the values so that we can see we have almost 3 billion rows in this table. We've got instant response times, instant gratification. Let's drag on actual revenue and fiscal month. We'll make it nice and big. We get all the interactivity that we would expect. And I'd like to point out that the query durations are in milliseconds. This volume of data would have taken hours using standard data ingestion techniques for ETL tools. We've blown the performance benchmarks for reading Parquet out of the water. Now, you may ask, how would a schema or data update affect the user experience? Well, let's find out. I have some geography data in this CSV file that I'd like to add to the model. I'll convert it to a delta table, refresh the list, and it appears in the Lakehouse tables. Now let's refresh the field list in Power BI Desktop, and there's the new geography table. I didn't have to reconnect, and the system just picked up where it left off. To summarize, we've unlocked massive data with blazing fast performance, and we didn't have to copy a single row of data. We didn't have to manage ETL jobs into the data warehouse. We didn't have to manage data loads into the Power BI dataset. OneLake's unified storage format enables a single copy of data that works with Spark jobs, Python notebooks, is served through a data warehouse interface, and users can create beautiful Power BI reports in seconds without any data duplication.
Okay, so that is highly relevant to this audience, especially with using lakehouses in Delta Parquet format. So you get the best, absolute best speed in the industry to work against that data in a BI tool. With that, I'm going to hand off to Bob for some demos. Go ahead, Bob.
Thanks, Mahesh. So, hi, everyone. Like Mahesh said, my name is Bob. I'm a PM working on the connectivity layer of Power BI and Data Factory within Microsoft Fabric. So, you've used Power BI, you've used all the connectors within Power BI. That's the area that I'm responsible for. So, at the beginning, Mahesh asked how many of you all are using Power BI. How many of you are all using Power BI with Databricks today? Oh, that's great. So some of what you'll be seeing in these demos might look a bit familiar. But as Mahesh just went through a few demos on Power BI, the next set of demos are going to be specifically on Databricks and Power BI. So some of what you're about to be seeing will be familiar. we'll have 3 demos on different ways that you can bring data from Databricks to Power BI. And then we'll have a 4th demo, kind of a sneak peek of something we're looking to bring coming soon, if you will, in the near future. I see I have just under 6 minutes left, but I know the recorded length of my demos goes about 8 minutes and 45, so I'll ask for a couple minutes at the end there. So when we talk about bringing data from Databricks to Power BI and using all the features that Mahesh just showed, many different ways we can do this. The first way that we'll see is through what we call get data in Power BI Desktop. And so, we'll start in the Databricks experience here, as you can see. I'm in my workspace working with a sample data set of New York City taxi trips. As you can see in this sample dashboard built on top of the sample data set, we have some trips, we have some visuals based on different columns of trip distance as well as cost. But how do I get to this data from Power BI? Starting in Power BI Desktop, we have the Get Data experience, which is the first step of getting data through all the different data sources that we offer. We currently offer over 175 direct data connectors to different data sources, as well as hundreds and thousands more through our generic connectivity interfaces, such as ODBC or web or others. We'll select Azure Databricks, which is the one that we'll be interested in today. And as you can see in the connection creation experience here, there's going to be a list of fields, connection credentials, that we'll be asked to fill in order to access our data. You'll also notice a bunch of advanced options, which outline different ways you can connect to the data. But for now, we'll take the server host name from the Databricks experience, as well as the HTTP path, which are the first 2 fields here, and then we'll fill them in. These fields can be queried directly from the Databricks experience, as you see here, and represent the 2 required fields that we'll need to connect to our data. And this is the simplest, happy path experience that many of you should be familiar with. We'll select Direct Query, click OK. And now we see the different ways you can authenticate to the Azure Databricks connector. We have username, password, basic auth, personal access token, as well as directly through Azure AD. We'll use one of the simpler access methods, generating a personal access token from the Databricks side. I've already done this for the demo, so I'll be selecting that in the experience and copying it in shortly. Once I connect successfully through the connector, I'll be brought to the Navigator experience within Power BI. In this experience, I'm able to see all the resources that I have access to within my Databricks instance, and drill down to the specific trips data within the New York City taxi sample data set that I have. And here I can either choose to load it directly to Power BI or launch the Power Query Editor, where I have access to hundreds of transformations, and I'm able to preview my data, wrangle it, transform it before loading it to Power BI. Here I'll do a very simple transformation based on the columns available. Let's try to filter down this list of trips to those that are only over 25. And I can do that using a very simple number-based transformation in Power Query here by specifying a filter operation to keep only rows with the distance over 25. And with that, I'm left with only 5 rows. And now that my data is in the shape and location that I want it, I can now bring it into Power BI Desktop. It'll apply the transformations and then show up on the right-hand data tab for me to then select. From here, I'm able to build all the complex visuals and all the different charts and reporting tools that Mahesh has just gone through. For this demo, I simply selected a few fields and will make a very simple table out of it. From here, once I have done everything I need in Power BI Desktop, I can then go through the process of publishing my report to PowerBI.com and then start sharing it with others. So this demo is a very simple, quote-unquote, get data happy path of how we bring data from Databricks into Power BI. Now, the next way uses something called Databricks Partner Connect. And many of you may have seen in this experience in Databricks at the very bottom that there's something a few logos at the bottom, offering an experience where you can click that logo to connect to that particular quote-unquote partner. We're very happy that Power BI is one of those. So using this Partner Connect experience, you can have a one-click experience to download what is known as a PBIDS file, which is basically a file that tells Power BI I want to connect to Databricks. I'm able to simply open that file, and that file will open in Power BI and provide me that direct connection experience to Databricks. So as you see this load, because I have already authenticated using my personal access token, I won't need to do so again. But as it loads here, you'll see that just by opening that file, it's already brought me back to the navigator experience that you saw previously. And from here, like in the previous demo, I'm able to select my data, transform it in Power Query, and then eventually we'll get back to the same experience. We can start transforming the data and then building our reports. Just like there. And so the third experience I want to show here goes through an experience that we released relatively recently, less than a year ago, where we're leveraging get data using what we call custom SQL or native queries. And why this experience is so cool is, well, what if, for some reason I'm doing my analytics not in the Power Query experience, but I've already done a lot of that in Databricks. That's quite common. Databricks has a great SQL experience here. And I want to bring that analytics directly to Power BI. I don't want to have to redo that. So we started playing around here in the SQL experience, doing a very basic select on my trips data. But let's say at this point in time, I wanted to do my filter on the trip distance over 25 here instead of in Power Query. Well, I can do that through modifying my SQL statement to include a filter where I only keep the trips with distance longer than 25, and you can see the same 5 rows here. But I want that to persist in Power BI. I don't want to have to do that again. So you can see here in the Power BI connection creation experience, going back, filling in my host name and my path. But below, you'll see something called native query, which allows me to actually paste in that SQL query that I had just written in Databricks directly into the Power BI connection creation experience. So you'll see me do that in a second here. And this is really powerful because this enables me that added degree of flexibility where I'm now able to just copy paste in any SQL query and have that run as part of the connection creation experience. Now the note here is I do need to specify a default catalog from Databricks in order to use this feature. It won't actually let me go ahead without it, but after I put in my catalog from Databricks, you'll see that when I click OK, that SQL query runs, and I'm already given those 5 rows. So I don't need to do that again in the Power Query experience. And this will work with any type of SQL query that you can copy paste in there. This also works over direct query, and that's the feature we call direct query over custom SQL. So both import and direct query will work on that. So the last demo I'm going to show here is thanks to our friends over at Databricks. It's more of a coming soon sneak peek into a publish to Power BI experience directly from Databricks. Whoop. There it is.
Sorry.
So within Databricks itself, there's going to be a new experience here where I'm able to connect directly to PowerBI.com. I'm going to specify my workspace, my authentication credentials, and be able to publish whatever I'm working on in Databricks directly to PowerBI.com, skipping Power BI Desktop. And I can go directly to PowerBI.com and start building my report there, as you can see in the demo right here. So this experience is not yet live. However, we're excited that this is coming soon, and it's a great example of how we keep building on top of the experiences, offering more diverse experiences as part of this Databricks and Power BI partnership. So I know I'm now well over time, let me bring it back to invite Mahesh back on stage and see if there's any questions. Thank you all for staying, and thank you all for choosing this session to attend.
Thank you, guys. Please fill out the evals. We sincerely appreciate your feedback. Thank you.